Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Kalamazoo City Commission to order for Monday, June 19th, 2017. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Knott.
Here.
Commissioner Milzarek. Commissioner Sykes.
Here.
Commissioner Urban. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Hopewell.
Present. May we have a motion to excuse Commissioners Urban and Milzarek?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Anderson,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Sykes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. For our opening ceremony, I don't see Mr. Sherman here, so I'm going to ask if the Vice Mayor would lead us in an invocation
Okay.
in any way, shape, or form.
All right.
I ask that you stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh God of all that is good, we thank you for the beautiful day and for the beautiful season. We thank you for our young people who now go forth on vacation, and we ask that you protect them and help them during the summer. We ask that you grant us wisdom, that we may be instruments of your grace and channels of your peace to all in the city. We ask this in the name of all that is good. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting this evening. Commissioners, before you, you have the agenda under item C. Are there any changes? Hearing no changes from commissioners, anyone wanting to speak on items under the consent agenda, that's items under F, that item will need to be moved to the regular agenda. If you have such an item, please indicate at this time. Hearing none, Communications Manager Ritzman.
Yeah, tonight I'd like to draw your attention to one item on the calendar calendar of upcoming meetings, that being a work session next Monday on June the 26th at 6 p.m. here in the Commission chambers to discuss medical marijuana facilities. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. The consent agenda, please.
We have the following 9 items for consideration. First is the approval of a contract with Hubble, Roth, and Clark Incorporated for design engineering of West Michigan and Howard Street traffic signal upgrade project in the amount of $144,700. Next is the approval of a contract with Epic Excavating for the 2017 Streets Concrete Project in the amount of $237,047.50. Next is the approval of contract number 17-5132 with the Michigan Department of Transportation for the Vine Street Improvement Project from Westnedge to Crosstown in the amount of $690,300. Next is the approval of a change order number 6 to the purchase order with Pell Construction LLC for City Hall facilities maintenance and rehabilitation work in the amount of $138,400. Next is the adoption of a resolution authorizing the city clerk to submit a grant agreement to the Michigan Department of State for the acquisition of new voting equipment and accepting this grant of equipment in the amount of $178,234. Next is the authorization for the city manager to execute a letter of agreement between Ostemo Charter Township, Pfizer, and the city to extend the city's water system consisting of a water main and pressure reducing station to the area of West J Avenue, 2nd Street, Rosemary Lane, and Josiane Drive in Ostemo Township. Next is the approval of the write-off of $31,308.37 of a $140,000 Economic Initiative Fund loan made to BDSLM Enterprises, LLC, by the City of Kalamazoo Economic Development Corporation. Next is the approval of a buy-sell agreement with Charlie Beach for the purchase of property located at 1015 East Elcott Street. And finally, approval of the minutes from the City Commission meetings on May 15th, May 22nd, and June the 5th, 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve the consent agenda and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion? Moved by Commissioner Knott,
Support.
supported by Vice Mayor Cooney. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Hopewell,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried. Reports and legislation. Mr. Manager.
First, we have a presentation by Assistant City Manager Laura Lamb and Community Planning and Development Director Rebecca Kick. This is kind of the moment everyone's been waiting for. It's the rollout of our Imagine Kalamazoo 2025 strategic visioning process, and I'll turn it over to ACM Lamb to walk us through it.
Thank you.
Evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I'm very, very excited to join Director Kick to be able to present to you the strategic vision, the draft strategic vision this evening. I'm really even more excited to get beyond the vision work and get into the transformational action we've been talking about and hoping about for the past 16 months. I'm going to start a little bit in the beginning to kind of remind ourselves why we started this journey and to what end. And then I'm going to turn it over to Director Kick, who's going to walk you through the process of Imagine Kalamazoo, as well as the results. And then I'll close it out by reminding ourselves the connection that this work has to the Foundation for Excellence and how we intend to proceed from here. So as you may recall, January 2014, there was quite a bit of energy and time spent in establishing 5 key priorities to lead the direction of the city over the next several years. Most importantly, I think of this, for me, priority 3, this recognition that it was time for a new vision, and more importantly, it was time for us to develop a new vision in close partnership with our community. There was a recognition by this body that we were ready for a new vision. We really wanted to be able to ask ourselves, what's the city we want to be in the next 10 years? And more importantly, what are the tools we're going to need to guide our way? The establishment of these 5 priorities really led us to the point recognizing we need to develop a strategic vision and update our master plan. This is really the snapshot of all of kind of the existing plans and policies that are currently underway. And as we started to begin this process and look at everything that was going on, we started to ask ourselves, how might we line up this work in a way that makes it more clear what is important and what isn't? What are the most important actions we can take to achieve a vision? And how can we make sure that our actions are guided by this vision on a daily basis? Going through these questions led us to the creation of the 10-5-1 vision alignment. The idea that over a 10-year period, we would have a vision that would guide our 5-year plans and policies, and that our 5-year plans and policies would then shape our annual allocations and our actions. The notion that being after 5 years, we stop and reflect how much have we achieved, what's more to be done, and then to start the process over again. When we set out to imagine Kalamazoo 2025, we had a couple of key things we wanted to do. We wanted to experiment with various opportunities of engagement like never before, going out into the community as deep as we could to reach people we haven't previously talked to. We wanted to result with a strategic vision, an update to our master plan that truly reflected our community's values and priorities. And lastly, we wanted to develop an overall framework that's going to hold us accountable to our vision through our action. We wanted to keep a blend of our community voice and experience with local data and best practice. We want to make sure that developing our strategic vision brought these 3 ingredients together to shape it and then lead the way for our plans and policies to get the work done. I'm going to pause here and let Director Kick come up, walk you through the Imagine Kalamazoo process and the results, and then I'll come back shortly after that.
Good evening, Madam Director.
Good evening, Commissioners. So we've been through the slide a few times, but now we've reached the point of the slide where we're formalizing the vision. The vision that we're presenting to you tonight is a culmination of the past 16 months. These last 16 months, which are then going to, after this draft, we're going to start with the work that Laura said. We're ready to get into implementing this into action. After we've got the action plan started, every time we see a success, we want to tell our story. We want to be sure that we're celebrating this. So not only is this a timeline about moving forward, but it's also how we really want to change things, and so that you're able to see how we're implementing these goals as we go forward, because that's truly why we're doing the work that we're doing. So to talk a little bit about the outreach and methods, like Laura said, we wanted to be sure that we reached out to as many people as we possibly could. We also had 2 classes from Kalamazoo College and graduate students at Western Michigan University helping us to engage and create the framework for the discussion that we're going to bring to you tonight as well. So we've engaged through so many different types of events. We held drawings at places. We had youth engaged in capturing what they wanted to see for their community. We did some surveys as well. We also held many one-on-one conversations. Throughout all of these different types and methods of engagement, we had many contacts. And I want to say this as points of contact through each of these phases, the imagine it, the plan it, and the design it phases, is because each phase we reached many new people. And some of these phases brought along people who've been part of Imagine Kalamazoo since the beginning, which is fantastic because each time each phase moved forward, we asked new questions. We got more detailed. We wanted to be sure that we went from broad concepts right down to very specific geographies within the city. And so at this point in the process, reached over 3,500 contacts within the city. What's critical to the number of contacts that we have made and the ways people have given us input is that we make sure that no comment truly gets left behind. That everyone also, we understand, everyone gave us input differently. And when I say they gave us differently, yes, some people gave us drawings, some people filled out a survey, some people sent us letters or emails. But people also gave us very direct comments. A project, or fix my sidewalk on Axtell Street, or whichever place that they had. Put a community garden in my neighborhood. And others were very visionary, and they would say, make Kalamazoo a model city. Make us the model for the most disability-friendly city in the United States. And so when you look at this graphic, understand that, so the community input along the side, then the strategic vision is that plan where the values get captured. In the master plan are those very, we need a complete streets policy, we need a climate action plan, we need to work on the land use, the transportation, those pieces of policy which affect us. And then below are very specific plans that are developed for implementation. So when we talk about a climate action plan, then what targets are we setting for energy reduction and for greenhouse gases? In a parks and recreation plan, what are we setting as targets for investments in our parks, and where are we doing that, and where is the community asking us for that information? We gathered all of this, and through that, we heard many times, how is this going to be different? How will Imagine Kalamazoo be different from the planning that we've talked about before? Because some people were very honest and said, I don't have a new goal for you. I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told you 10 years ago, and what are you going to do with it? The difference at this point is we've been looking at so many new best practices, whether it was priority-based budgeting or a high-performing organization, is how we tie them to the work that we're already doing. Because some of those goals were not implemented simply because of money and resources. Others were about partnerships, building new partnerships to get the work done. How are we using our resources differently? And that's human resources and financial resources. So when we align with priority-based budgeting, we've asked the community, what is the most important work that we do, and how can we make the greatest impact? We're linking these goals to department work plans so that the accountability is different. So the timing for the strategic master plan is at a really incredible point of time in the city, especially after having just gone through priority-based budgeting and looking at the foundation for excellence for the future. So I'm going to quickly walk you through, where did my comment go? If a resident were to say, you know, what, I gave you input, so how did that make it into the plan, and which plan did that make it in? It just shows you a graphic of many different places it could go. So like I said before, when there were values, directions, challenges, opportunities that were given to us, something about internal governance. Hey, I think that your planning staff should be doing this. Grand Rapids does this. Chicago does that. We take into account what are those best practices for growth and development that we might look at. We also looked at very specific best practices, some connected to safe routes to school, others about connecting neighborhoods. In Seattle, they use what's called the 20-minute neighborhood. Also sidewalk and bike networks. I did mention earlier about complete streets. How are we using complete streets to make decisions about land use and transportation? Additionally, we had very specific input that was given. Fix my sidewalk. I want brick streets in my neighborhood. Branded wayfinding that shows the historic nature of my neighborhood or cultural heritage. Also, fix the lighting near my bus stop, or that we need more community gardens. The plans where we got very specific, like the greenhouse gas targets, talking about shared prosperity and reduction of poverty, about childhood education, those types of comments go very specifically into some new plans that the city has never had before. The shared prosperity plan, which is underway right now. The climate action plan, which is also underway right now. The economic development plan, which is underway through the urban growth initiative. These are 3 new plans that were identified through the Imagine Kalamazoo input. Themes that arose as input was captured were connected and accessible community. This was heard again and again as we had discussions, developing strong connections between a diverse range of people and places. This meant both physical connections and social connections. Equity and opportunity for all, to be sure that there is inclusion of all people in every neighborhood and that we all must share in the decision-making process. That we have a vibrant and friendly environment that protects the quality of our natural environment as well as creating a strong community with community-driven investments. Each of these themes then was translated into shaping the strategic vision. As we brought input in, these 10 strategic directions became the basis, the foundation for the strategic vision to move forward. Complete neighborhoods mean the establishment of land development and transportation planning, which merge to create healthy and safe, convenient access to daily needs. These investments in compact development within neighborhood centers support businesses and public transit. These will be investments in parks and recreation amenities for all residents, repairing bike and sidewalk networks with crosswalks to enable safe walking and connectivity to destinations throughout neighborhoods, as well as the implementation of built environment strategies to address inequities through housing choice, food production, access to health care, and other supportive services. The strategic direction, Strength Through Diversity, recognizes that barriers exist and that have existed for many years, and that have not equally represented the dignity and value of all people in our community. The city is working to create an equitable environment for all people, regardless of race, ancestry, place of origin, ethnic origin, citizenship, creed, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, status, income, or socioeconomic status. By consulting with the community members, the city strives to eliminate discrimination and disadvantage and promote relationships that are based on understanding and respect for all people. Providing services and facilities in public spaces and making sure everyone has the opportunity to participate in the future of our city. Through a connected city, we want to provide the framework to improve human and environmental health by creating safe and complete neighborhood centers, by encouraging active transportation and better providing access to services and destinations across the city. This goal embodies the connectivity of neighborhoods with land use, community economic development, affordable housing, infrastructure, and transit investments. A connected city is one that promotes a well-defined outdoor space that can easily accommodate people who are incorporated with connecting buildings and spaces. Inviting public places encourage the integration of nature into neighborhoods throughout the city, with placemaking that speaks to each neighborhood. As public places are planned with inclusive activities that invite the community to come together along streets, in parks and plazas, and within neighborhood centers. Public spaces are designed and consider what the nearby environment is like and what the needs of the community are. Environmental responsibility. Investments and planning should reflect the thoughtful urban design that can both preserve and enhance the city by conserving energy, water, and natural resources for future generations. Environmental responsibility includes creating well-defined walkable neighborhoods that have access to nature, active parks, streets, and public spaces. Economic vitality is growing businesses and stabilizing the local economy for the benefit of all. The strategic direction to grow Kalamazoo into a vibrant, diverse, and increasingly regional destination while supporting the local economy to benefit individuals across all income levels. A safe community for living, working, and playing. The city will continue to invest in new and existing facilities that contribute to public health and safety, to provide a safe utility system that responds to increasing growth, changing technology, and additional demands on limited facilities. The city also addresses blight, resident safety, and the needs through strategic planning and partnerships. Youth development is a city where young people thrive. Investing in our community's youth for their future with resources and services to provide learning experience and emotional support to grow and thrive. Parents are supported to create stability and growth for their children with structured opportunities for involvement and education. Shared prosperity means abundant opportunities to achieve shared prosperity for all. Youth, family, and jobs. Shared prosperity ensures that youth and their families of all cultures, ethnicities, abilities, and economic backgrounds have the support and opportunities to thrive. Achieving this goal requires focus and collaboration across a spectrum of partners, including educational institutions, businesses, public agencies, and community nonprofits. And finally, good governance. Making and implementing public decisions in ways that are collaborative, inclusive, and data-driven. The city will align the strategic vision and implementation plans with a budget via the priority-based budgeting process to achieve our goals. We're also looking to implement open data to provide public transparency and support decision-making processes with metrics for improvement and investment. So with each of those new 10 strategic goals that we're looking forward to, I wanted to ground them back in the priorities to the strategic goals. The 5 commission priorities help to shape and develop our IK 2025 process. The high-performing organization work and will continue to define our future direction. So the strategic vision timeline tonight, we are presenting this draft to the City Commission, and we'll be back on July 17th for you to consider this for final adoption. In the meantime, we will have this document available on imaginekalamazoo.com as well as the city's website so that we can have public comment on this document as well. In the next couple of days, we will also be creating binders so that the document can be at City Hall and at Community Planning and Development for those who do not have access to printing the document out or to a computer, then we will have access to that. Additionally, I will have in both places our phone number so that you can reach us for comment by phone and by email. The next part of this process will be looking at the master plan. At the next July meeting, we'll be bringing a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Commission to release the draft of the master plan for 63-day comment period. So since we've already gone through the process of Imagine Kalamazoo and how we've been gathering input, I wanted to give you a quick look at what you're going to be seeing at your next July meeting for the master plan. The introduction will be similar to the strategic vision, as the master plan will be grounded in those 10 strategic goals, and we'll be laying the foundation in the same way. This master plan, however, will be building on the great work that happened in the 2010 master plan, which suggested that we move towards a land use and transportation model of zoning and a future land use plan. That plan will better define development patterns and street types, which we have been asked to look at by the community. The 3 sections that will be in the master plan are the connected city. This will be your land use and transportation direction, great neighborhoods, and enriched city life. The connected city will detail zoning, districts, structures and uses, as well as a new plan which details corridor and node descriptions. The connected city will look mainly at transportation. The Great Neighborhoods Plan will help look at a new neighborhood planning policy. Neighborhood plans haven't been done since about 2009, and so we're looking to refresh the neighborhoods plans while we are looking at growth and development in many of our neighborhoods right now. We've also been asked to look at this idea of complete neighborhoods, which I described in the strategic directions. Now, this is something that the community talked about a lot, how they don't have access to daily needs. And some of those needs can be affordable housing, public transit. How are we helping to look at neighborhoods and see where are you on the spectrum? What is a complete neighborhood? What does that mean for Kalamazoo? What is in this 20-minute walk for each resident? And how would we begin to define that? So that's why we want to go through this neighborhood planning policy, because again, that looks a little bit different for every single neighborhood, and we need to be very in touch with those neighborhoods in order to understand what that should look like. Again, we want to look at zoning as a strength, not as a barrier to what we want to accomplish. You could be trying to accomplish growth, and you could be trying to accomplish preservation. And zoning could work against you in either way. So how are we using our zoning to be sure that it is a strength and an asset to our community? As well as the downtown districts, with the work that the Urban Growth Initiative and the Economic Development team has been going through, how are we making sure that the downtown zoning, the downtown streets are setting us up for success? The implementation tables will be written by goal, objective, action, and then measurement metrics to help us, again, tie accountability, the capital improvement plan, and other priority-based budgeting work that we're doing to all of these goals for Imagine Kalamazoo and the master plan. The master plan timeline, right now, we are drafting this document. Like I mentioned, in July, the first meeting in July, we'll be going to the Planning Commission to ask them to release the draft to the City Commission. When we come to the City Commission meeting on July 6th, we will be asking you to authorize that 9-week government review. We will then be holding a citywide Imagine Kalamazoo presentation sometime in September to do a public release so that we can have public comment as well. In October, we will finalize that with a public hearing at the Planning Commission and bring it back to you at the City Commission on October 9th. So you know the rest of the work that we're also pursuing when we talked about what are those action plans that have come out of this Imagine Kalamazoo effort. That has the climate action plan. We're hoping to continue to vet that as well through that 9-week process that we're also taking input in through the master plan, and we hope to have the climate action plan wrapped up at the end of this year. We also hope to have the shared prosperity plan well underway here in 2017. We'll be looking at an update to our housing and urban development comprehensive plan, or consolidated plan, excuse me, in 2018, as well as the Park and Recs plan in 2018. I'm going to ask Assistant City Manager Liam to come back up and update you on the Foundation for Excellence. Thank you.
You're in the home stretch. All right. So as we're all aware, there's a very strong connection between Imagine Kalamazoo 2025 and the Foundation for Excellence. We laid out this process earlier this year to allow us to move forward with Foundation for Excellence projects in 2017 while we waited for the Imagine Kalamazoo process to complete. We looked to identify connections between Imagine Kalamazoo 2025, the themes we were hearing throughout the conversations that Director Kick just described. We kind of looked where those overlapped with staff input of what they understood to be the needs out in the neighborhood and in our community, and then really tried to figure out from the combination of these three elements, what are the project ideas that emerged. We took a long list of projects and went through using priority-based budgeting to try to prioritize those projects based on impact and then further prioritize them based on project readiness. As you may recall, in April, we came before you with a list of projects that we thought best met the criteria we explained. And since that time, we've really been refining those projects. We've been trying to finish those scopes out. And as these projects become ready, we bring them forward to you for consideration. As sort of a review, here are a list of the Foundation for Excellence projects we've approved to date. You can see the Summer Youth Employment Program, All Things Possible, Supervised Recreation, just recently the Lead Service Replacement Program, as well as the Shared Prosperity Kalamazoo Consultant. This gives you a snapshot of where we've been up until now. Throughout the Imagine Kalamazoo process, we heard repeated themes about the state of our neighborhoods and how people had goals and dreams for them to be better. Particularly, we heard about the need for our parks to be enhanced. We heard the need for better sidewalk connectivity, making it easier for people to walk in the areas that they most want to walk in their neighborhood. On July 3rd, we're intending to come back before you to provide you with an overview of some Imagine Kalamazoo neighborhood projects that we think really align well with the Foundation for Excellence, kind of go into more detail, and then it would be our hope on July 17th, we would come back forward to you all for consideration for funding those projects. And we'll end with this piece here, remembering this diagram. You can kind of imagine you are here at the center. We've been talking about this for a long time. We've been talking about 2017 and then 2018 and beyond. This diagram is really intended to demonstrate how we want to bring Imagine Kalamazoo at the core center of our work, how we use this process to now tell us what are the most important community goals we need to be working towards, what are those projects and programs to make those goals a reality. As you follow it through, we intend to allocate our resources, employing priority-based budgeting to ensure impact, to ensure action. Funds will allow us to have a balanced budget, to have property tax reduction and aspirational projects via the Foundation for Excellence. And we will see these aspirational projects executed alongside city services with a new lens of high-performing organization, trying to do better than we have before to deliver these services. And lastly, the important element of a community scorecard. How do we increase that accountability using quantifiable, qualitative methods to say, this is what we heard the community say, this is what we intend to do, did we hit our mark? And if we didn't, let's talk about it, and let's start over again. Let's figure out what didn't we do well, what do we need to do better, and have this be an iterative conversation, an iterative process. As Director Kick mentioned, we do have the strategic vision available. I want to certainly be clear, the draft that we have attached to the agenda, very preliminary draft. I can remember as we presented this process well in advance, Commissioner Anderson repeatedly saying, are you guys going to be able to do this? Can you guys do this? And I think we're so close, but I want to ask for your patience a little bit and knowing that what you have there is very preliminary. In the next 2 or 3 days, we should have the next draft posted. We wanted to make sure we had people as much time as possible to get at the goals, but we recognize that what you have has some copy editing to do, and we appreciate folks for pointing that out. So with that, I'm going to pause. I'll invite Director Kick back up, and we'd be happy to handle any questions that you might have of us.
I'm going to start because I don't usually get a chance to start, and mine is real quick. If you would humor me and ensure that we have copies of this at all our libraries in the community, another way for individuals to be able to get those items. So, thank you. Oh, got a collar issue. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, questions? Commissioner Anderson?
Sure. Well, first of all, I did want to say that I appreciate this is an astounding amount of work and an astounding amount of detail to try to condense into kind of a format that you can pull it all together and make it understandable. So I'm going to say that you're most of the way there, and I've read through this, and still it's something you're going to have to really think about, I think, continually to kind of grasp how all these interlocking pieces work. I appreciate that very much. I do have a question. As you mentioned, the draft that was included in our agenda, which was out for folks to get, much of that same information is really in the document you presented tonight in a different format. Is this in essence a new improved version of what was in our agenda, or is this a different version of it?
So we intended through the slides to sort of highlight what we thought would be the kind of the essence of the plan. So it's not intended to supplant what's actually in the agenda as a strategic vision draft.
Okay.
We certainly can make available the presentation for people to peruse at their leisure, but the intent is that we will rely on the strategic vision document for people to review and make comments on.
Okay, I have one other question here. It's related to this, and maybe this Ms. Lamb, maybe this is more for you, and I don't want to get too far in the details of this, but one thing I remember as we're pulling all these lines of things together and getting this done, which is quite a moment we've been waiting for, and then begin to turn this into recommendations for specific actions, is at the same time we need to get the final codification of how the actual foundation piece is going to come together and how that fits into the timeline. So could you take a moment just to talk about the fact, because we're not all done with that yet. So just generally speaking, when does that get done in sync with this, and how do we make sure those are aligned also?
It's an excellent segue that we're almost ready for. Attorney Robinson is actually going to give us a brief update on Foundation for Excellence after this. So after he gives you an update, I'd be more than happy, if we still have additional questions on process, I'd be happy to come right back up again. That was your way of saying, let's move it along, right? We're fine with that. We're ready to sit down. Excellent point. Excellent suggestion.
Other questions for the team? Commissioner Sykes?
Question or comments allowed?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm such a broken record, but I refuse to ever have a moment where we're talking about Imagine Kalamazoo that I don't say this. It's an exciting time. It's a really exciting time. There is not another project that I'm more excited about. There are a lot of great projects happening here in the city of Kalamazoo, but there's not one that I am more excited about than the Imagine Kalamazoo process. And it's so, it's been a really fascinating process, because in the beginning, you've got this great lofty goal, an idea, and it's very exciting, right? But one of our jobs is to make sure that that's actually what's rolling out, right? And each time I meet with you all, and each time I hear about it, I'm more impressed than I was the last time. And I'm more excited than I was the last time, right? So I'm just gonna keep putting that out there and just celebrating that. That's really exciting, and I am so grateful. I know this has got to take a lot of time. I doubt this is happening within 40-hour work weeks, I'm just saying. So I can't be more impressed and thankful, and you know, the city is really, the city, and when I say the city, I mean our constituents, our residents are really gonna benefit a lot from the hard work that you all are putting in. So thank you for that. Shut up.
One of the things I know that's going to be a part of this, and I can't remember if I saw it in the IK 25, and maybe it belongs in the Foundation for Excellence, but the whole discussion of how we measure our success, and hoping that that becomes what we're talking about often as we're going about this work, that we're connecting the dots back to what citizens have said and what they've said they wanted for our community in regards to aspirations, or what they hoped for that we didn't know if we could hit that aspiration. It may not be the highest, but oh my gosh, all of a sudden now we have, you know, corners that are safer, or that we have more flowers planted in the community, or what have you. How are we moving all of those efforts? Understanding that the Foundation for Excellence is a tool to move our normal everyday responsibilities to this community, which we typically do through our budget. So there's a lot of things we're doing with $146 million every year. And this is an opportunity to expand our ability to make that and provide more clarity and transparency to that work, and being able to say to citizens, here you can go see what's happening with roads, how many have been done, what's the next steps and where they're going, what's next. You can get that now, but I think having a way to really access information more freely, more easily, that I can feel good about as a citizen about what's going on and how we're moving things. And then I'm hugely about branding our efforts. I think we have some brand work that we have to do in regards to our city, and some great cities are doing some really creative things, but branding this work of the Foundation for Excellence and branding the work of IK 25, letting folks know that this came out of this and this came out of your idea. One of the things we used to do at Borges, at least I did with my staff, when we go through employee engagement processes and hear all of the things that they are happy about or not happy about, when we implemented something, we had the little idea guys, the little light and whatever, and I've mentioned this way back when, a few years ago, but that was our way of telling staff, this came from you. This was something that you raised, and here's how we moved your idea forward. So that sort of spirit, that sort of branding, that I want to be in your face and intentional that, hey, you brought this idea, you brought this sort of thinking. Maybe it was microcosm of thinking, but here's how we moved it globally that affects everybody. And then I know this takes a lot of time and energy and people, and it will take people, but Director Kick, I think you have a new partner on this journey, and I thought you might want to introduce her tonight since you're standing before us. I just wanted to give you an opportunity.
Thank you for allowing me to do that, Mayor Hopewell. I'm so proud to introduce you to Christina Anderson. Here is our new city planner. So please welcome her to our team.
Welcome aboard.
She's been a huge part of Imagine Kalamazoo, for many, many months, and helped to create 12 of the most incredible and successful neighborhood meetings. We could not scoop her up. She was wonderful.
She's going to pop me in the head after this for
Yes,
doing that.
I know.
I like surprising folks. Any other questions for these major leaders? Vice Mayor?
So, thank you. This is an awful lot of work. I really appreciate it. There's a lot to think about in here. So the goal is the highest quality of life for all our people in the community. And what we recognize is that people right now are at different stages of that quality of life. So there has to be some priorities set as we think about this, because we're not all starting out at the same spot. Some people are doing fine and other people are hurting. And so we have to decide how we can use these resources and set some priorities here. But I think you've done a wonderful job in outlining for us the sentiments of a lot of people and some of the very important things that we need to get done. I think especially I like the section on sustainability and climate change and how we have to really move on that. That's unquestionable for all of us. So there's a lot to think about in here and a lot of things to weigh. So thank you for that.
Thank you, team. Mr. Attorney? Got you writing, sorry.
Well, that's right.
Taking your notes.
I think I sometimes feel as though I'm the tail on the dog because of the effort that's been done by people like Director Lamb and Director Kick. But in looking at this and taking the long view, it seems to me that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And let me take a little time to tell you what the parts are, because I think it really started with the commission that hired Jim Ritzema as your city manager. Then one of the first things he did was call together the commission and himself at a meeting at the transit, said, what are the priorities that the city commission is going to have for this community? Those 5 priorities, and there was a slide that showed what those were. And that was agreed upon as, I don't want to say a contract, but I'll use that word loosely, between the city administration with the leadership of Jim and the commission as composed at that time. And this commission has continued, this iteration of the city commission has continued those priorities. Well, as part of those priorities, of those 5, and you know what they are, it was, okay, what can we do, and following up on Jim's interview, is, and I remember it as if it was last week, the Michigan municipal finance system is broken. What can we do to fix that? How can we, because we can't dig it out of we can try to dig out of that problem, but it's a long, hard climb. So what can we do? And he tried various things. We got our house in order in regard to OPEB. He put together other promised employee benefits, usually it's employee health care in retirement. Then it was the other was, okay, we fixed that. Now what are we going to do about the problem is that we don't, because of the broken finance system, what can we do to generate enough revenue to deliver the services so we can meet those priorities? So he called together a community committee of 21 people who had various ideas, and none of them, I mean, there was really one idea that really was kind of the answer, at least it appeared to be obvious to me, but that didn't have a lot of political will behind it in terms of the income tax. And so those folks who opposed that idea, Jim challenged them. He said, okay, if you're opposed to the idea, what do you have to put it in its place? And as a result of that dialogue, and it's also at the same time, running along on a parallel track, was the IK 2025 process. Again, part of that meeting of those priorities. And so with that and with the vision both of the city manager and a couple of lead donors, and as well as the mayor's involvement, we got to the point where there was a unique philanthropic approach to the issues that were confronting the city of Kalamazoo. And as I said, all of these initiatives are part of the sum of that create the whole project where we are finding ourselves today. And that is kind of, I wanted to give a little bit of that background because I don't know if that story is told often enough, and we don't do a very good job, as the mayor just indicated, of branding it or telling our story. and the good things that are occurring. So I wanted to get that out in front for those folks who may be listening on television. So where are we at in terms of the foundation for excellence? Well, it's legal documents, and that's why I said I'm maybe the tail on the dog. It's kind of this is the unexciting part of this, although for attorneys it is exciting. And I have been engaged in conversations, and we've traded drafts between myself and Mr. David Toms of the Warner Norcross firm, who is counsel for the two lead donors. We've had sometimes we have a little question and we clarify it. Sometimes we've been, I don't want to say, we hadn't had cross words, but sometimes we have to parry and feint with one another in terms of where we want to go and because we're each representing our clients. We have a common goal, but we have different ways of getting there. So where are we at? We have traded drafts. He has reserved, I have a meeting early in the morning, but after 10:30, I'm open for the rest of the day. He's open for the rest of the day. I will be in his office approximately 10:30 tomorrow, and we're going to get through the last bit of writing, primarily of two documents. There's several documents involved, but the two primary ones are the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws. And then once we have those and it's approved by this body as well as his clients, then we will be prepared to come forward with a resolution authorizing the incorporation of the foundation under a section of the Michigan Home Rule Cities Act. And we can file that document with the state. That is kind of an administrative process. You file it, and usually within a week to 10 days, you get approval back from the state, and that would formally establish the foundation. And then the next step would be to file the requisite paperwork with the Internal Revenue Service to get tax exempt status. At this point, I can say that the goal of the foundation, and this again goes back to some of the issues that I've already mentioned, it is to keep the millage at a competitive rate with our municipal neighbors. So as everybody probably is going to see in the next few weeks, when they get their summer tax bill from the city, they should see a reduction, at least in that portion for the city, by approximately 7.25 mils or thereabouts. So that's $7.25 for every $1,000 of value in your home you're going to save. So take the amount of, take your assessed value, divide it by 1,000, then multiply it by 725, and that's money in your pocket, if you will. There's also, as made reference to the broken finance model, there's money that's set aside as part of the gift, if you will, where it's to address that shortfall until the state of Michigan, quite frankly, and again, Vice Mayor Cooney has mentioned this, we need help from other resources in the state. And it's not, and this is, and I'm not pointing fingers at Republicans or Democrats. Administrations of both parties have shorted municipalities for a long period of time. And so until the state is willing to help out local municipalities, we're going to continue to face that type of problem. So that money is built in. And then finally, I think the one that everybody is really excited about is setting aside some money for the aspirational projects. So, and the list that you saw there, again, that was presented in terms of what are we going to do to address generational poverty, how are we going to create opportunities for our community's youth, what are we going to do in terms of paying for and getting lead service, which is a public health issue, getting those out of the ground, and so that our people in our communities can drink safe water. I mean, the water we have is safe, but why have the risk of a lead pipe that's servicing that? Again, we're not in the Flint situation. Our water is potable. Our water does not present a public safety risk, but there's a perception, and those pipes are old, and if the water does sit in there for long periods of time, there will get some leaching. So why take that risk? So those are some of the aspirational projects that are out there that we've already encountered and embarked upon. There will be continuations of those programs, and there maybe, I'm sure there will be others in the future. So this is, I apologize for going on, but this is an exciting story that I don't know that we necessarily, as I said, tell often enough or tell loud enough. And so thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that.
Commissioner Knott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Attorney, we, I think, had a deadline of August of 2017. Where are we as it relates to meeting that deadline?
I think we're going to make it, I would think, fairly easily. Like I said, I'm going to spend tomorrow finishing up the draft. I think the plan is to have that material come back before the City Commission sometime in July, with the idea of taking action, I would guess, either the second meeting in July or the first meeting in August, which would give us plenty of time to meet that August 31st deadline.
The intentions that you get this document beforehand, that you'd have some opportunities to ask different engagements, to ask staff questions and what have you, certainly rolling out to the community, the whole typical things that we do with something like this, but you will get this beforehand. Could be as early as next week, could be as early as next week. Also, keep in mind that your feedback that you've been giving, the meetings that you've had with the lead campaign folks, the lead donors, the comments that have come in there, just it's been a sponge collecting everyone's thoughts from our previous meetings, from when this all started, all of those things that's been massaged and molded in, and trying to get at every single piece of everything we could think of. Not to say there's not something out there in the universe that, no, we never run into that, something occurs, but I think that we've done, Clyde and Mr. Towns have done a really great job of trying to incorporate and keep the spirit of everything we want to do here moving forward and in the best frame of light. Commissioner.
What, could you remind us the process with the IRS is, the timing, once they receive our paperwork?
Well, the IRS works on its own timetable. It can, and there is a process where you can pay a little bit more and get expedited consideration, and I think that is an avenue we want to take. But there's a form that has to be filed, and the IRS has its checklist, and so if it has a question, that'll delay it because it'll come back to us and we'll have to answer. But assuming everything goes smooth, again, I don't want to make a guess and then miss it, but I'm going to say on the conservative side, if everything goes right, probably 6 to 8 weeks. More likely it's going to be longer than that. I would guess it's probably going to be closer to 90 to 120 days, probably. But again, that's just a kind of taking a guess at it. And once we get that letter, that makes contributions and like tax deductible and then so forth.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a small series of questions here. So I want to go back to something you did say, which is despite the fact that everything is not done and is getting, in the process of getting done, it is the case that the reduction in the millage rate is going to occur, and we're going to see that on our July tax bills. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when do those July tax bills get mailed out, approximately?
End of the month,
End of this month?
this month, right?
End of June, okay. And we talked about a couple things related to those mailings. One, somehow communicating to folks who are getting those tax bills how much they're saving. Is that standard tax bill would just have your bill and wouldn't provide any information along those lines, but so you don't have to do the math, call the assessor. Will there be any information in the bill that talks about what the savings are? And then also, we had talked about the opportunity for folks to, if they so chose, to contribute back to the foundation. Will there be anything in those mailings about that, or will there be an opportunity for that, or do we have to wait for the IRS in order for that to happen?
Well, I'll let, some of that's administrative, so Jim can handle that, but in terms of the IRS, once they give the tax exempt ruling, it's retroactive from the date of application or date of filing. And so we need to create the foundation first, and then, let's assume that the IRS finally gets around in early January of 2018, says, oh, you're tax exempt. Then that ruling goes all the way back to the date of, I think, the incorporation of the entity. But again, you have to be careful when you make your contributions before or after the creation of the foundation, which hopefully will be done in August.
And Commissioner, to answer your question about the tax bills themselves, there will be a place on the bill that will show the savings from the Foundation for Excellence. So it's laid out there for residents to see. And then there'll also be an attachment or a insert with the property tax bill that lays out details about the Foundation for Excellence and also opportunity to give back or donate back some of the savings to the city or to the Foundation for Excellence and how to do that. So.
And keep in mind also, Commissioners, as we do this work and as we look at the priorities, we already have staff and opportunities out there to kind of leverage this, that we could get more dollars. There's all kinds of grants out there. I know our grant coordinator, I got his title wrong, he's got a new title, my apologies, is working on some leveraging opportunities already. So when we talk about this, whether we talk about $10 million or whatever, as we leverage and do this work, we could be talking about much more that could have a greater impact on our city. So I'm saying turn over every stone and find every ducat you can find to move this work. So, and your priority. Any other questions? Commissioner Sykes.
Yeah, just, can you reiterate for me, and I know you've said it twice to me already, before now, and I'm gonna ask again, I apologize. But, so what's the time frame we're looking at in terms of when we get these documents? Because, you know, I think the legal documents that you mentioned will be or going through those documents will be maybe one of the most important actions that we take as a commission, and hopefully, you know, the citizens engage in that process too. You know, just reminding ourselves that this foundation is meant to be, you know, sort of the firewall in between the donors and the city, and, you know, sort of addressing, I know, some of the concerns that I had, that Commissioner Milzarek had. And so, just wanting to back up, we will get the documents very soon, maybe as early as next week.
As early as next week.
Okay, and then we'll have that time to look at, and we're looking at August. So we've got like at least a month to go through the documents.
Well, if we look at action, our second meeting in July, so it's probably more like 3 weeks, probably.
Okay.
To be realistic about it. But we could be looking at, but if it goes to the first week in August,
Then it might be a little
then
bit more.
you might have 6 weeks. Something, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to be,
I'm doing math and talking about money, I should be better at math right now. So,
well, it gets a little tricky. There's 5 Mondays in July, so.
Oh,
I didn't realize.
So we will be meeting on the 3rd and the 17th. And so as a result, and if we can get it to you next week, which is the week of the 26th, and you take action on the 17th, that would be 3 weeks. And if you take action on the first meeting in August, which would be the 7th, that would be 6-7 weeks. So
awesome. I just wanted to,
So probably at least 3-ish weeks.
yeah. Anywhere from 3 to 7 is what it sounds like. Perfect. Thank you.
And then also having access to them, don't call me, no. Any other questions, Commissioner? Thank you very much. Mr. Manager, you have anything further in your report?
Actually, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank staff. And as the mayor always refers to what we're on, it's a journey. And these people out there the city staff, the leadership, are with us along that journey with me. And I've got the best team out there, bar none. And especially I'd like to especially thank Laura Lamb and Rebecca Kick for seeing this through. And it was an incredible opportunity presented about a year and a half ago that kind of tied in with everything else we were talking about, the strategic vision and all of the things that were presented. So they brought it forward, and I applaud them. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. This is now the opportunity for, I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, do you have a report this evening?
No, sir.
Mr. Attorney, I assume you do not?
No, I do not.
We're now at item L, citizens' comments. Your opportunity to comment on anything this evening, please step forward. You have 4 minutes. Give us your name and whether you live within the city. Also, if you'd sign in after or before, dependent upon where you are in line. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I introduced myself at your board meeting for the neighborhoods, but I'll do it again. My friends call me Nehemiah Scudder, and my legal name is Isha Kazad. I'm in the process of changing my name to Nehemiah Scudder, but it's not quite legal yet, because that costs money, which I don't have as yet. However, I live at 1215 Oakland Drive, room number 1, and I like it there. It's got a lot of good points, but maybe eventually I'll be in other quarters. What I wanted to speak out at this point was 2 issues. I don't have a big master plan to present with dozens of sub-issues and everything else, but I have 2 issues which would help the city of Kalamazoo if they take action on them. So I'd like to suggest these 2 issues. One is to clean up the paper litter and other litter on the north side. I'd like to see the north side streets and neighborhoods be just as clean as Duke Street, which is where the upper middle class live in Kalamazoo. Duke Street is not the richest part of Kalamazoo. That's farther out and mostly, and I've been told that we have 2 billionaires in Kalamazoo, and they don't live on Duke Street, I'm pretty sure. But Duke Street does have some well-to-do people, and their yards and street are totally picked up with trash. If the north side could look like Duke Street, we'd be much better off, I think, and if we tried to mount a campaign to do that, it might be done. Well, when Jody spoke after I spoke at the neighborhood meeting just a few minutes ago, she said maybe the Boy Scouts could do some of the cleanup work. It's not too hard to do, and the Boy Scouts have noble incentives, and maybe they can work on it. For instance, our mayor, Bobby Hopewell, is very proud of his connections with the Boy Scouts. He's talked on numerous occasions about how he became, I think, termed an Eagle Scout or something of that sort. So maybe with his connections to the Boy Scouts, he could initiate the process of having some of the leadership of the Boy Scouts get their troops together and take them to the north side and clean up the place. That would be progress. Well, I only have 1 minute and 20 seconds left, but my other issue is to clean up the Kalamazoo River. It's somewhat cleaned up now. It's much better than it used to be, but I'd like to see the Kalamazoo River reach a point where you can swim in it or even drink it. And we're nowhere near that as yet, and so we have a long ways to go. And I don't expect the Kalamazoo River to get that clean for a while, but let's work on it. The Kalamazoo River is a reflection of the city of Kalamazoo. Will we dump our waste in the Kalamazoo River or let others of the companies along the river put their effluent into it? That's too bad, I think, because I like to see that river cleaned up. And not only the river, but some of the creeks that feed into it, like Arcadia Creek, and there's a couple other creeks here and there, like one that goes by up John Park. And if we could clean up our water courses that go through Kalamazoo, we'd be better off, I think. And my time is almost up, so I just say finally that maybe the Boy Scouts could help with cleaning up the rivers too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Manager, and staff. My name is Bob Miller. I live at 3218 Greenleaf Boulevard in Kalamazoo. I'm an Associate Vice President at Western Michigan University, and I'm also honored to be a member of the Imagine Kalamazoo Steering Committee. I would like to compliment the city staff on the inclusive, strategic outreach approach to gathering input from the community. In particular, Laura Lamb, Rebecca Kick, Christina Anderson, and their respective staffs are to be commended. They could have said, we're going to do this strategic planning process. It's called Imagine Kalamazoo. So come to City Hall and tell us what you think. Well, they didn't do that. They went to where the people are, the parks, the mall, neighborhood associations, the university. There were numerous locations for input over a 16-month period of time. Goals were established. They offered information. They said to the city, how are we doing? Are we getting it right? Are we hearing what you're saying? More input was gathered. As was mentioned, the city staff utilized students from WMU, Kalamazoo College, KVCC, to help gather this information and analyze the data. On behalf of the university, thank you for offering our students this experiential learning opportunity. As you review the draft of the Imagine Kalamazoo report and incorporate this information as you begin your decision-making process relative to priority-based budgeting and the launch of the Foundation for Excellence, please know that because of the hard work of the city staff and the volunteers, this report was authored in a very real sense, not by the staff, not by the volunteers, but by the citizens of Kalamazoo. They have told us what their priorities are. We need to listen. I'm honored to be a part of this work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Hello, I'm Jody Dozman. I live in Kalamazoo. Last meeting, I brought some information about some connections I'm working on. Here's some documentation, and I believe the rest arises within you guys. Going to sign it, turn it in, and I shall return. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ben Brown, and I have had the good fortune to be a part of several Imagine Kalamazoo meetings. And I just want to give you a basic report that I was amazed, again, at the city or at the project going to the people. And I just want to state my appreciation. I was very amazed to see some of the ideas that I heard the citizens come up with included in the planning. And to echo Mr. Miller's comments, it's very much a collaboration which includes the citizens of this community. And what's being accomplished is amazing. So just thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please. Good evening, ma'am.
Hello. Hi, my name's Cody Dunton, and I live in the Stewart neighborhood. I can't stop talking about Imagine Kalamazoo to everyone in our community, and I just wanted to share that with you. I've been lucky enough to be part of the Downtown Kalamazoo Subcommittee and a number of the neighborhood meetings where I got to facilitate the biking and walking table. It's been really inspiring to get together with people in neighborhoods all over the city and listen to both their practical solutions to challenges we have and their greatest dreams. And it's even more exciting to watch all of those pieces come together so that we can ask more specific questions and put together solutions to build a community together. I walked around the reveal meeting over at Rose Street Market, and I saw renderings of things that I have dreamed about for our community for a very long time, and it's great to see that my neighbors are dreaming that too. I just want you to know that we have imagined mightily together, and we are ready to do the work with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, please. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk almost on behalf
Sir,
of...
could we have your name and whether you live
Oh,
within the
sorry.
city?
Alfonso Espinoza. I live in the Oakwood neighborhood. And again, thank you for giving me the opportunity for speaking in front of you. And I want to thank Director Kick and Laura Lamb and Christina Anderson for introducing me to the city, basically. I've been involved with Imagine Kalamazoo. I believe it was in the very first meeting that happened last year in October, I believe it was, on the north side. And it was almost coincidental. I went there to translate from English to Spanish, and unfortunately, nobody that spoke Spanish showed up, except me. But it gave me the opportunity to learn about what is going on in the city and what was going to be happening in the next few months. I'm very thankful for all that. And once getting involved with the city and learning about these plans, my path basically developed into joining my neighborhood association, becoming the vice president of the neighborhood association, and connecting even more my neighborhood with the city and the future that is being discussed here in the next few months as well. My development with the city went even further now that in the Planning Commission. I held a senior Planning Commission, and I cannot speak for every single one of them on the Planning Commission, but we are eager to see what this master plan is going to look like. I'm eager to read the 59 pages of the strategic vision and have an opinion on that, and being able to be part of the body making a decision on the development of our city, of our neighborhoods, and our community in general. I'm very thankful for all that, and yeah, I can go on for hours, but I only have a minute. So again, I wish there were more folks involved in this. I know that this was the biggest turnout. The last few meetings were the biggest turnout for receiving feedback from the city. I still wish there was more feedback. I know there's people who wish things will happen, but wishing is only a quarter of the equation. So it won't do anything. You have to come up to these kind of events, show up, and voice your opinion, and make sure that you're involved somehow. And I cannot find a better way of doing it than coming here and showing up to the meetings and voicing your opinion of what the people are in your neighborhood, in your area, in your community are telling you that is needed. Is the best way to communicate our needs to the authorities of the city and the staff. So, but anyway, thank you very much for your time, and again, thank you, Rebecca, Laura, and Christina. It's been a great pleasure. So,
thank you, sir. Next, please. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. My name is Pat Crowley, and I am the Kalamazoo County Drain Commissioner. My office is at 201 Kalamazoo Avenue, Kalamazoo. I truly believe that what you decide here affects the well-being of your citizens and the environment of the river. As you know, all surrounding lands, streams and drains, ponds and lakes connect to our river. And as a jealous world reminds us, freshwater resources are scarce resources. Thank you for your commitment to the good management of our drinking and wastewater. Those systems are enormously vital to the success of our region. And most recently, your discussion of environmental sustainability was an inspiration to the rest of us in local government. But there is one environmental issue that you, today, more than any other organization in a region, have the sole power to affect and provide effective leadership on, and that is dumping. The main victims of dumping are primarily those with large community dumpsters. Next are the drains, the streams and forested lands, and all the creatures that share those environments with us. With the cutback from monthly city bulk pickups, contractors, landlords, and regular citizens are simply skipping out on their legal obligations and choosing to dump on others. The drain office routinely removes about 15 tons of garbage and large household appliances every year from one short length of stream just north of the interfaith homes. This is despite the Herculean efforts of its management and of its residents to stop dumping and littering. And this is but one example of hundreds. And I have to say, Mr. Kazad also talked about that. In the beginning, I was really upset with individuals who would dump on our beautiful land and in our waters. I considered it to be an individual breach of ethics, but now I realize that much of the problem is also linked to the city's budgetary commitment to waste management. I am not an expert in waste management, only one of many left holding the bag, so to speak. And these problems, of course, are not unique to Kalamazoo, so I beg you to borrow, steal, mooch, whatever, practical strategies from other cities. Things that might be helpful include more, smarter collections, better enforcement on contractors and landlords who dump, and a more vibrant public outreach. You have many talented employees who can help you get through this to a better situation. The Community Foundation, the County Drain Office, the Kalamazoo River Watershed Council, the Lift Foundation, and all its partners are coming together on Wednesday to do a cleanup on what is formerly known as the State Ditch, and the children have renamed it Peppermint Creek. We're inviting you to that cleanup on about 10 o'clock and to a barbecue afterwards. Each of you, I believe, have received special invitations. I invite you to see for yourself what this stream and its people are struggling with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Can you hear me? Okay, now it's working. My name is Zachary Laster. I live in the city of Kalamazoo. With what the drain commissioner said, I remember a couple weeks ago during the code enforcement discussion, it was brought up that curb lawn trash has become an issue, one of the more frequently visited issues by code enforcement lately. And with the cutback from monthly to quarterly bulk trash pickup that happened last year, that was spearheaded by Commissioner Milzarek. I think maybe with the Foundation of Excellence, we might want to look at going back to maybe monthly pickups, because it's clear there's becoming some very negative effects in our community due to the lack of bulk trash pickup that's happening monthly. With now the code enforcement people saying the curb lawn trash has gone up in April, and then the drain commissioner mentioning that as well. I think that's something that should be reviewed. Another thing I wanted to mention is bike lanes and the strategic plan and the master plan, you know, we have crumbling roadways, we have crumbling sidewalks, we have necessary infrastructure that's barely holding together, you know, bridges in our area that are, if you look underneath, it's quite bad. They're falling apart, yet we want bicycle lanes. You look at Portage Road there, they repaved it just to put in bicycle lanes, but the sidewalk's falling apart. Blind people trip on the raised parts of the sidewalk and fall on their face, and you know, the necessary stuff that needs to happen doesn't, so we can have bicycle lanes, which are frankly nice but unnecessary. They're one of those look good, feel good, but really don't help when the other necessary infrastructure is skipped over that our city needs. I want to thank what was Mayor Pro Tem Anderson and is now back to Commissioner Anderson for giving me a copy of City Attorney Robinson's report. I looked it over. I like how City Attorney Robinson said that the news report at Wood TV stopped short of calling the secret meetings happening as unlawful, when in fact they were called unlawful in the thing at least 3 times. I also sent a copy of that report to a couple attorneys that deal with openness in government, and they thought it was absolutely ridiculous as a legal opinion. So we'll be visiting this again shortly, I can guarantee that. I went through your city commission rules, and there's this fun little rule called Rule 7, and I'll be using that. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Frank Warren, living in the Terrace. I was just sitting here watching all this stuff he had on the screen up here tonight. Had kind of reminded me of a company here in Kalamazoo that took some land and turned it into a profitable business down there, and that's RX Optical. They're sitting on what you call a landfill. The new building they got down there, I don't know how many pylons are down in that ground, but there's an awful lot of pylons in that ground down where that new building went up. That new building is going to be an insurance company and everything else for them. They're going into the insurance, more than insurance or retail than anything else. But RX Optical, you know, took a piece of land, which is, I call worthless, and made it into a profitable land and made it look beautiful down there. If you guys ain't been around back there, look how much that ground they tore up and see the junk that they took up out of the ground. It kind of makes you wonder. Also, you know, I helped Izzy's lemonade stand last Friday over to the trampolines over on Portage Road, and I didn't know that they're out doing work for other charities now with their lemonade stand. Any charitable that needs help, they're out there, they're willing to help them. So you know what, I think that proves that these people are not just the honor flight, they're doing it for other people. And when they have the fair come this year, they're going to be doing the honor flight at the fairground this year for just the honor flight. And I'll tell you what, I'm surprised how they made lemonade. I was surprised. Those people do not take a half a lemon. They take a whole lemon and chop it up. And they smash it up. You can get the juice out of it. You get the whole lemon. You don't get a half a lemon or just a lemon flavor or something else dumped into it to make it got lemon flavor. I'll tell you, they got a genuine lemonade. Anybody ain't never had it better, well, it's awesome. So I was going to say that they're out doing different charities. They had one down here in the park, and they had the one over the trampoline. I was surprised how these people are out helping other people and not growling about it. That shows you we've got good citizens, but you know, they live in a township. They don't live in Kalamazoo. They live way out on Gall Road past the Borges Hospital, so you know they're out in the township. So it makes you think a little bit when you get people like that to come in and help different charities out raising money for whatever they need it for. I was surprised. And also, you know, like I said, I'm surprised that the honor flight's all ready to go in September. They've got their money. Only thing now they're doing is waiting to get a schedule when it's going to fly out, but they haven't got their money. And everybody asked me, I had a guy ask me a question. Does the federal government furnish the airplane? I'm going to tell you, it's a big, big no. Federal government gives them nothing. The people go out and raise that money. And when they get done with that money, they raise, whatever they raise, 98% of that money goes back to that flight. because they have to buy the jackets and the shirts, or the jackets and the hats the guys get to go on those flights. So you got to realize that's a very big thing that those guys are doing for here in Kalamazoo. And I have to say thank you to them too. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wanting to address the commission this evening? Hearing no one, we are now at commissioners' comments. I'm going to start with Commissioner Sykes, since Commissioner Knott is all by herself on the left-hand side. She gets the last commissioner word. Commissioner?
You know, making me go first increases the pressure up here.
I know.
So I guess, and I don't know if this is a better question for City Manager Ritzma or Director Baker, but I just want to sort of go back to the commentary on bulk trash pickup. And I know I was here when we made the vote to decrease the number of pickups that we had per year, and that was based on budgetary limitations. But I wonder if we have, more input, more feedback, more thought on whether or not that's working or not working, because it sounds like maybe it's not, and then I wonder, is that something we need to then revisit, to I don't know, answer for whether or not that was the right decision for us to make at the time. So that's one. Yeah, I don't know, I can stop him.
Yeah, I can respond to that. Director Baker, since he began, has really been looking at different ways of how we expend out of that fund. If you recall, a couple of budget cycles ago was when we decided to increase the millage because the costs were projected to be in excess of what the funds were available in the solid waste fund. So since then, there's been some other moving parts that he's revisiting, that we can look at revisiting the bulk pickup and how we administer that. Right now, it's every quarter plus 2 additional month or 2 additional pickups, so 6 pickups a year. So we'd be talking about adding, another 6 onto that. So we'll give you more information as that becomes clearer, and you certainly can revisit that.
Awesome, thank you. And then I'm going to be really quick and say this again, Imagine Kalamazoo 2025. I am so proud and so excited, and am loving, I've always loved our city, but this just, makes it that much stronger. And I think as long as we continue this commitment to, moving our city forward, doing the work of moving our city forward based on the collective voice of all of our residents and including everybody in this process as we move forward, we'll continue to honor the values that I know we all have, and that our city holds, and that's exciting. There's not everybody is doing that. So I'm going to give us all collectively a little shout out and pat on the back.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Anderson? No. Vice Mayor Cooney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've all heard tonight about all the tremendous efforts that are being made to increase the quality of life, to help our people to the highest quality of life. But the quality of life of our people in this community is affected also by decisions that are made outside this community at the national level. And there are decisions being made in Washington right now which are going to dramatically affect the health care situation with the people in our community. There is a bill already passed by the House of Representatives, and if that bill were to become law, it's estimated that 40,000 people in this congressional district will lose their health care. Now, we can just let that happen in Washington and say that's terrible, or else we can try to do something about it. And so there are a group of people who are organizing a rally and a march to save health care. It'll be next Wednesday, not this Wednesday, it'll be on the 28th at 5 o'clock in Bronson Park. And we will have speakers, and we will march to our congressman's office down here with signed petitions saying we believe that health care is a human right and that everybody in our community should have access to health care. Martin Luther King said one time, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health care is the most shocking and inhumane. We need to fight this, Our people deserve it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Knapp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of comments tonight. First, as it relates to bulk trash pickup, I don't want us just to have a knee-jerk, let's put back 6 more trash pickups, because in some of the urban neighborhoods, people were applauding the fact that we reduced the number of pickups because property owners were dumping trash once a month on properties that they or their friends owned, causing, I mean, if you dump on a Thursday and pickup's not till Monday, by the end of the weekend, it's spread everywhere. Also, we have a climate action plan that we're talking about adopting, and bulk trash pickup encourages just dumping it on the curb or in a drain in the waterway instead of recycling. So I'm hoping that as we're looking at the climate action plan and waste management, that this is a conversation that complements one another. Kind of switching to the presentation from tonight, I gotta say, you know, awesome job, Director Lamb and Director Kick. You guys had a home run tonight. I'm looking forward to the conversation on July 3rd as it relates to neighborhood projects. And, you know, I understand that we're gonna hear things like tree trimming, sidewalks, and about our roads. And I'm cautiously optimistic, or maybe I'm hopeful, that we're gonna hear proposals for increased milling of our road surfaces. I've had some conversations with the City of Jackson, and I've looked into milling of road surfaces, and really it's about pavement recycling, and it reduces the impact, the overall impact on the environment. I know that we do milling now, but I mean, you talk to a resident anywhere, it came up in Imagine Kalamazoo, our business leaders talk about it, anywhere you go, people are talking about our crumbling infrastructure. Our gateways are a mess. I mean, Oakland Drive it's a gateway into our downtown community, portage to downtown, and it's falling apart. Our neighborhoods are also a mess. Nehemiah, and by the way, happy birthday last week, had mentioned, you know, the north side and trash. My main concern is that you can't drive a car down the vast majority of the north side roads. They are literally crumbling. So again, we have work that needs doing right now, and we can't pave our way out of this crisis. So I'm hoping that when we hear about neighborhood projects, particularly infrastructure projects on the 3rd, that milling of our road surfaces is going to be on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just, you're sort of leading me into a couple comments. I want to give a little cautionary note. You know, I want to make sure we don't disparage a neighborhood over another neighborhood. And we've been using, and Mr. Stutter did this, the north side this, the north side that, when not necessarily do you live on the north side, and not necessarily do you know everything that is or is not happening in a neighborhood. So I don't want to be tagging the north side as this blighted neighborhood, because there's a whole lot of work that people are doing in that neighborhood to make change and then make improvements, just like it's happening in every single neighborhood. And we get to hear about that on our 3rd meeting of every month from our neighborhoods. We have challenges, no doubt, in our city. But you can find a home that isn't great in multiple neighborhoods, and you can find trash, which we want to eliminate all these things in many different neighborhoods. You know, I get the calls often, and so watch tagging one neighborhood as this or that, especially when you don't live in that neighborhood and don't know what's going on with that. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but in general, it's a caution that we have to find some balance. I want to remind also, you know, we heard that bike lanes, that we created bike lanes we redid Portage Street so that we can have bike lanes. So I would just ask, is that correct, that Portage Street was changed or traffic was calmed just because of bike lanes? Because that's what was referred to. Is that correct, Mr. Manager?
I would ask Director Kick, who's been involved directly with that, and Director Baker. Together, they've been involved.
I'll take this one for Director Baker. In fact, we actually just went to the Planning Commission. The Portage Street was originally, it was being mill and filled this year. It's been on our Kalamazoo Area Transportation Study Transportation Improvement Project plan for the past 5 years. It was to be mill and refilled as a 4-lane road, as it is right now. We had several community members come to us and say, could you please, when you finish the road, not restripe it to 4 lanes? We're asking you to stop the project in the middle and bring it to a public hearing, which we did. We brought it to the Planning Commission to ask if we could consider the road to be restriped to 3 lanes and add bike lanes, and that study's in progress.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct.
Answered my question, thank you. And so again, a cautionary note that we get hammered with facts and opinions and thinking, and you need to do this, Commissioner, sometimes threatened, even received one tonight. I appreciate that, but you need to have all the information. I don't know, standing here, and that's why I asked the question, did we have somewhere where it said in the document that let's change Portage Road because of bike lanes? Never did I see that, but I wanted to make sure I clarified with the folks that built the road. But let me talk about bike lanes for a minute. We've made complete streets a priority. Thank you. Complete streets a priority. You've done that. We did it here in public, transparent to the community, bike lanes, complete streets, safer roadways. This is all work that we've committed to do. Bikes are a part of our community, walking's a part of our community, wheelchairs are part of our community. All of these things where we see a challenge or an opportunity, we need to figure out a way maybe to move forward to address that challenge and opportunity. I would submit to you that we heard for 25 minutes about Imagine Kalamazoo and about the Foundation for Excellence, and it talks about complete neighborhoods, and it talks about mobility and non-motorized transportation, which we've had a non-motorized transportation plan for years that we haven't been able to resource, that has talked about this on my 14 years of being on the commission. So my point being is that it's a priority. Complete streets are a priority, and complete streets include, at times, some streets, bike lanes. It is what it is. We voted it. We can change that. Excuse me, is there someone talking? Thank you. So if we want to change that, feel free, but we've decided that complete streets are important to this community. And finally, just on a personal note, I want to thank all of you and those that have been reaching out to me and my family on the loss of my sister 2 weeks ago, and when we put her to rest today. Thank you for that, and your caring for my family. We really appreciate it. We are now at item N, closed session. There's a closed session to discuss pending litigation. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Cooney.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Anderson. We will not be returning for action after this, so this meeting will be adjourned after this vote. Clerk Worley, please call the roll.
Commissioner Sykes?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney?
Yes.
Mayor Hopewell?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Knott?
Thank you, Commissioners. We are adjourned.